Hello everyone, this is Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Roguelike of the Week. Astute viewers amongst you might have noticed that I've actually already done a video on Warlock of Firetop Mountain, but afterwards I felt like I didn't really do justice to the game, to the things I like about it, and didn't really articulate why I think it's as worth playing as I do. So let's have another punt. I was having a rough day, I was coming down with the flu, and so on. So let's have another try, shall we? And I'll make more of an effort to convey what it is that I think is actually worth your time about Warlock of Firetop Mountain, the roguelike. First off, if, like me, you grew up in the 80s and or early 90s, you might remember the gamebook phenomenon. The first gamebook, possibly not the first one ever, but certainly the first one that was really well known and successful was the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, which kicked off the whole fighting fantasy gamebook series, which is probably the most famous one. Personally, I was more of a Lone Wolf fan, and I have a Lone Wolf tattoo to reflect that. And there were some others that were really notable, like Way of the Tiger and Cretan Chronicles. But fighting fantasy was the big one, the Titan, pun intended, for those of you who get it. And Warlock of Firetop Mountain was by no means the best book, probably not even in the top half, but it was arguably the most important, because it was the first. This is an unofficial roguelike version of Warlock of Firetop Mountain. And it actually does a pretty good job of converting the Warlock of Firetop Mountain experience into a roguelike. It doesn't just include referential names and levels and the odd monster that's recognisable from the original book and that sort of thing, although those are there. But it actually tries to recreate elements of the book in roguelike form, and I'll explain that a bit more as we get going. First off, the backstory, such as it is that there's a warlock living in the caves under Firetop Mountain, and he has a load of treasure, and we're going to go and take it from him, because he has it and we want it. Also, you might notice, I didn't notice before, that there's this little sort of ASCII-ish picture of a dragon flying around some mountains. Isn't that nice? So, in we go. We get two classes to choose from here. Most of the time you don't. You just get the adventurer, but when you manage to kill the warlock, you gain... if you pick up a particular item after killing the warlock, you gain access to the warlock class, which gives you some spells and things that you can use, which is very, very nice. Lovely touch, and actually consistent with the ending of the book, where you can take possession of the warlock's magical paraphernalia and actually become the ruler of Firetop Mountain yourself. So that's a really nice touch. And when I recorded the first video attempting this, I actually hadn't beaten the warlock. I still haven't beaten the game because there's more to it than just killing off the warlock. But let's be bog standard adventurer, since that's who you will spend most of your time playing as. And in the grand old tradition of me playing RPGs, I'm going to be called Alf, and we'll begin. So, at the moment we're on the plains in front of Firetop Mountain, and we're going to advance. Wow, we've got bad stats. This is going to be nasty. At the bottom you'll see we have stamina, skill, and luck. If you've ever played a fighting fantasy game book, then you'll be familiar with these three stats. That is how fighting fantasy deals with its combat and various other challenges. You roll dice and you add numbers to them, and you end up with your skill, stamina, and luck. Generally, in my experience of this game, a skill of 9 or lower is too low. And our stamina's not bad, actually. Generally, about 16 or higher is fine. But our skill is going to be a problem. You start off with a few items which are chosen more or less randomly. So we have a club with an attack of 2, crude leather armor with defense 1, a short bow, and some arrows for our bow. And there's a bit of variation in the gear you get, but it's always the more basic end. So we might have got a +1 short sword instead of a club. We might have got normal leather armor instead of crude leather armor. So there is a bit of variance in how well equipped you are when you start off, as well as in your starting stats, which are rolled up through simulated dice rolls. So, here's what we have to start off with. And we're going to head towards the entrance to the dungeon. This is the only time that we go sort of outside. It's the only exterior section. And you always start off with a bow of some sort, so you always have projectiles. And those are very important as you progress through the dungeon, because generally, as much as possible, you want to avoid going toe-to-toe with enemies. Most enemies are at their most dangerous up close. Now, one of these two... Yeah, we're doing really badly with our weak skill here. One of these two is actually the guard of the entrance to Firetop Mountain. Oh, we're going to have to heal ourselves by eating provisions. Having to eat provisions this early on is very bad. You start off with 4 provisions. It is possible to find more in the dungeon. You don't find many, but what they do is heal you for a few points of stamina, so we'd better scarf one of these immediately. By pressing U and then E. There we go. So up to 5 stamina, which isn't great, but we're going to heal again in a minute when we enter the dungeon anyway. Just about managed to kill the guard. We need to pick up this key to open the entrance. And keys are vitally important to the game. They're one of the central features. So we unlock the gate like this. U, if you have the appropriate numbered key, then you just press U and direction towards the gate. There it is, opened, and in we go. And we'll choose to rest before we continue, which gives our stamina back. And this is one of the mechanics which I like about this game. Every 3 floors, you have the chance to rest. Well, it's not strictly every 3 floors, but after the first 3 and then the second 3, you get a chance to rest. I don't think you do after the third 3, because that's where the Warlock fight is. Dungeon is 10 floors long. But what this means is because you don't regain health just from passive regeneration the way you do in a lot of roguelikes, you have this constant tension of whether you want to use your provisions or try and hold on until the next rest point, and how much you want to explore versus the associated danger of losing more stamina. We've got quite a good starting room here. There's a chest. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen, when we step on it, it says chest 67. That's because every locked item, whether it's a door or chest, in the game, matches a key with a number on it. The key that opened the front door was key labelled 9. So we need key labelled 67 to open this chest. We don't have it. And keys are of vital importance. If you're at all familiar with the original Warlock of Firetop Mountain gamebook, then you will know that the way you win the gamebook is not by killing the Warlock, though that is a part of it. The way you actually win... Let's equip these arrows. They're slightly better than our previous arrows. The way you actually win is by getting the Warlock's treasure and then escaping from Firetop Mountain. To get to his treasure, you have to kill him. But there's actually a notoriously amusing / harsh ending to the book, where you successfully defeat the Warlock, but you can't open his chest, and it says you just sit on top of the chest and cry, basically. Because the chest is locked with 3 keys, matching numbered locks. And you need the correct 3 numbered keys in order to open the Warlock's chest and get the treasure which you came here for in the first place. So if you don't have the right keys, you can't open the chest, and basically you've failed. You've beaten the Warlock, but you come away with nothing. And the same is true here. Which keys you're going to need, of course, are randomized with it being a roguelike, unlike in the book. So basically you just need to grab as many keys as you can, and that's a lot of the impetus behind exploration. I've got another chest here, needing key 67. That's a lot of the impetus behind exploration, because for a while, when you're first starting to play, you might find, as I did, teleport trap. You might find, as I did, that it seems prudent to just make a dash for the downstairs whenever you find them. We're going to have to go on that trap again to exit here. There we go, that's not too bad. And we need this fountain. This blue one over here, which looks like a trap, is actually a fountain which will heal us if we use it, like so. So for a while, I did keep just running to the stairs, or immediately descending to the next floor once I found the downstairs. But if you do that, you end up with far too few keys. Basically, by the time you get to the Warlock, you want to be carrying probably more keys than anything else in your inventory, because you're going to need 3 keys and you don't know which ones. So, okay, we need to explore a bit. This looks like downstairs, and it is, but it's not the ones we're after. There are the ones we're after. So, what's the difference between the red ones and the grey ones? Well, for a start, the red ones are a dead end. You can't actually descend further into the dungeon through those. You just go to one specific floor. Whereas the grey ones are how you proceed further through the dungeon. The other thing is, the red ones are dangerous. The red stairs that show up on dungeon level 1, which we're on at the moment, lead to the barracks, which is a dangerous, dangerous place. And later on you get some red stairs that lead to the cave, which, despite being later in the game, seems to be slightly easier than the barracks. And then further down still, there's the boathouse. So why would you go down these red stairs? Well, it's true that they're more dangerous, but they also have a higher chance than normal floors of spawning treasure chests and, crucially, keys. You also tend to run into more powerful enemies there, which might drop better weapons and armour. Let's grab this stuff. I think that was a better weapon. Yeah, longsword. Generally, any weapon or armour that you see which is blue seems to indicate that it's statistically better than what you currently have equipped. That seems to be why it's blue. Sometimes you'll see things in purple or green which indicate special effects, things like poison or I think yellow ones have lightning effects and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go into the barracks because that's an easy way to get killed. Generally, it's advisable to explore down through the dungeon a bit until you come to the next rest point, and then, if you're strong enough, come back and check out the barracks then. Because going into the barracks straight away is an easy way to get killed. I've had a lot of runs end that way. But it is worth exploring all these red-staired floors if you can, because they're one of the best sources of keys. And as I said, the game comes down to keys at its core. So, what is it that I really like about Warlock of Firetop Mountain that's making me bother to recommend it to you twice? Well, some of the things I like about it are referential of the book, but it's not necessary to have played the book in order to appreciate them. So, for instance, we have things like dungeon level 4 is the river. If you've read Warlock of Firetop Mountain, you might remember the river with the boatman who overcharges you to ferry you across the river. What was that? New armour? Orcish chainmail? I'll take it, because our current armour is so dreadful. So you always have to cross the river on level 4, and you have to fight the boatman. But there are other referential things as well. The Maze of Zagor is one of my favourite parts of this game. It's one of the worst parts of the book, generally reviled for being incredibly tedious. It's basically a maze where a load of rooms just look identical and you have to try and map it out either on paper or at least in your head, although that's difficult, and try to keep track of where you've been so that you don't retrace your steps and you're trying to get to a Minotaur and kill it. It becomes incredibly tedious very quickly, and it's generally not highly thought of. But the way it's executed in this game is simultaneously faithful to the original idea of Zagor's maze, and at the same time more fun. What am I wearing? Quality leather armour. Yeah, fine. So let's get rid of this Orcish chainmail, don't need that anymore. There are no shops, so there's no point holding on to things to sell. Oh, another fountain. That's a lucky find. Might go back for the barracks now, since we're back up to full health. Yeah, the way the Maze of Zagor is implemented in this, as you explore, you don't get to see the layout of everywhere you've explored, like this. You just see your immediate surrounding area, which means that you have to make a point of remembering yourself where you've been. Then when you kill the Minotaur, you can see everywhere you've been. It's just quite an elegant way of not just incorporating something in name from the book, but actually capturing the spirit of it as well. And that's something this game does really well. When you get to the river level on dungeon level 4, if you take the red stairs down from there, you end up in the boathouse, which is full of skeletons. You might remember that from the book if you've read it. The bit where skeletons are building a boat. And the game's just full of these really nicely executed nods to the book. Not just superficial name drops, but actually integrating things from the book in a way that makes sense in this game and is as close as possible to the way they were done in the book. So I have a lot of appreciation for that. Okay, let's just move on, shall we? Because we lost some stamina there. Don't really want to go back to the barracks like that. Oh, teleport trap, let's avoid that. But as I say, it's not necessary to be familiar with the Warlock of Firetop Mountain book to appreciate what this game does well. A lot of its design is very elegant. This started off as a 7-day roguelike for the challenge a few years back. That was the Orcish Butcher, that was our first mini-boss. I just tanked through him, which is why I took so much damage there. So when we find the stairs down from this floor, they will be yellow to indicate that we can rest when we descend. But we had to get the key from that boss in order to unlock the stairs. There are just lots of elegant design choices in this game. For instance, the way the resting every few floors is implemented, so you have that tension between exploring... Ooh, longsword with lightning effects. You have that tension between wanting to explore and wanting to push on to the next rest point. And things like the maze, as I mentioned, is a very elegantly designed... enchanted tools. You might remember those as well. It's a very elegantly designed reference to the book, but it's also a lovely design for a maze in itself, which works really well in a roguelike way. And the game is generally like that. It's not complex, and it's not long. It's only 10 floors long. And by roguelike standards, it's no net hack. It's not full of complexity and depth. But there's a surprising amount of strategic choice in how you approach it. When do you want to tackle the red stairs? Do you want to keep pressing down to the next rest point and then come back and trawl through all of those? Do you want to get all the way down to floor 9, beat the Warlock, and then come back and search for all the keys when you've mostly cleared out the dungeon? Do you want to try and push on for things like the boathouse? If you can clear out the boathouse, it sometimes contains loads of keys. But not only is it very dangerous in itself, it's also very dangerous getting the key to unlock it. You have to take on a werewolf, who's one of the tougher enemies you can face here. And the game is just full of these decisions. Although it's not huge and complex and deep, like something along the lines of NetHack or ADOM, it does offer a lot of meaningful strategic choices, and there's a lot of elegant, well-thought-out design to it. Which means that although it's simple and easy to pick up, it's still engaging and holds your attention. It's one of the roguelikes I've played and revisited the most. I've been chipping away at it over the last year or so, maybe even a bit longer than that, and I've been playing it a lot recently. This is Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and hopefully that gives you some idea as to why it's been my roguelike of the week. Look out for the next roguelike of the week coming up very shortly, since this is kind of a double one. The next one will be up in a few days, and I'm going to look at some more commercial roguelikes. I cover a lot of free ones, like this, and Zapp'em, which was the first roguelike of the week, but there are more and more commercial roguelikes on the market now, which are also worth your time, as well as, of course, your money. So we're going to be looking at some of those soon as well. But this one is Warlock of Firetop Mountain. It's accessible, short, easy to learn and easy to pick up, but still offers a surprising amount of tactical and strategic thought for a game that seems so simple. And if you've ever read Warlock of Firetop Mountain, you'll have that extra layer of appreciation for it, though it's not required. So, Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Thanks for watching, and rejoin me next time when we'll talk about some more games. Until then, bye for now.